and welcome to AWS Review, a weekly look at what's happening at AWS and how it may change how you do business. I am your host, Michael Krause. I am the Chief Innovation Officer at Charter Solutions, where we help organizations change and innovate quickly by accelerating their acquisition and use of data.
And I'm your co-host, John Affelter. I'm a lead technical architect on the AWS specialist team at Salesforce, where I work with potential customers, helping them envision the possibilities that AWS and Salesforce enables.
Excellent. Welcome back, John.
Yeah, welcome back. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy 2023. This will be a fun year.
Yeah, right. It'll be 2022 for another month or so, but but yes, it's 2023. I'm excited. A lot of great innovation going on right now. Definitely an exciting time to be alive. So
absolutely. So to our listeners and viewers out there, welcome back. We've had a brief hiatus through the month of December, dealing with a few things, including the holidays and a bout of COVID, but we are past that now and ramping up to start releasing many different episodes. So today, we are going to be reviewing some of the interesting data processing announcements that came out of reInvent 2022 and talk a little bit about how it might change our and your thinking on how you process data in AWS.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting updates that I feel are really paradigm shifters, especially if you're all in on AWS and you're utilizing some of the features that allow different services to link together as it is. I think a lot of these updates really accelerate that. So I'm excited to get into it. I guess, to kick us off, Michael, what are some of the first ones that caught your eye as far as updates, and maybe we'll start with some smaller updates and move into the big stuff as we go.
That sounds good. Well, maybe we could start off by talking a little bit about Amazon Redshift. There are actually a lot of different announcements around Amazon Redshift, but there were a couple that I found particularly interesting. The first one is aligning around AWS's kind of new modern data platform concept, where you've got data in all kinds of different sources. You've got transactional databases, analytic databases, data lakes, etc. And the idea is to ease the movement and access of data across all of those. So one of the things they announced for Redshift at reInvent was this concept of zero ETL integration with Amazon Aurora. Specifically MySQL right now, and this is in preview. They haven't released this for general availability. But the idea is that as you make changes in Amazon Aurora tables, behind the scenes, it can stream that data directly into Redshift. So now you don't have to write a ETL code to go and extract it from Aurora and then insert it into Redshift. It basically moves it automatically.
That's that is a theme that I'm seeing quite a bit across numerous technology companies, but that ability to have that zero ETL integration, between that and all the virtualizations that are happening that we'll get into later as well, right. It really is it's making it a lot easier to get going and to just start working on stuff right away and getting around a lot of those headaches that used to really slow a lot of projects down previously.
Right. Right. Prior to this, if you wanted to do this, you had to, go to Glue, create a catalog entry pointing at the Aurora database, go and run a Glue job that would pull that, or use Databrew, pull that, and then push it into Redshift. And or write your own kind of Lambda that pushes it to Kinesis Firehose and into Redshift or something like that. But now it's just or at least with this preview version, it's a configuration change.
Mm-hmm.
You turn it on. You say, here's my Redshift cluster. Here are my credentials in Secrets Manager. and go and start streaming these 5 tables as data comes in into Redshift.
Yeah, just right away. And I guess maybe piggybacking off that is that everything is starting to become integrated. So now they have the integration with Apache Spark and
Yep.
Redshift. So that whole pipeline of what you would previously even do. Obviously you don't have to think about it with the configuration stuff now, but even if you did have that already set up, there's a lot of integrations that you don't even have to think about anymore.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm just thinking about just the little things that you have to do to set that up or get some of that rolling as far as setting up, let's think about data as a product and
Right.
how you might gain or get insights from, data that might be in a lot of different places. You can move to that a lot quicker with maybe not even having to consult your data engineering team. You can just have a data scientist that can go out and start doing this.
So remember the data as a product concept for an announcement we've got coming up later on.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, if you wanted like near real time today, prior to this zero ETL concept, you'd probably go with DMS, data migration service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would set something up to watch a table using change data capture and pull it in. I really have no idea what they're doing under the hood on this at this point in time. I'm wondering if they're leveraging some of the stuff they've done with DMS and
Mm-hmm.
built basically a serverless or on-demand DMS mechanism with a layer on top of it for configuring, Aurora MySQL to Redshift. I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of they came out with Kinesis Firehose. Once Kinesis Firehose came out, I was working on a project we were using, or not Kinesis, came out with Kinesis data streams, and I was working on a project we had to get data in near real time into Redshift. So we had Lambdas that were listening to Kinesis data streams, grabbing that data, writing it to S3, and then invoking a copy command on Redshift to get that in there, right? And then they come out with Firehose, and that basically does that for you, right? So it almost feels like they've taken DMS and packaged it and wrapped it up and said, hey, now you can just configure for anything on Aurora going into Redshift.
Yeah, I think that's a good inference on that, and it also is. Firehose used to go into S3, then to Redshift, and now Firehose. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can just go right into Redshift.
Firehose, Kafka, they Redshift can now ingest streaming data through they use a materialized view concept that pulls it in with a view on top of it. Which allows them to access it much more quickly than going through the bounce to S3 and then do a copy up into Redshift.
Yeah, and that's just kind of eliminating these little steps that you would have to take. And I guess I'm looking at kind of our next update here, and it's kind of in the same vein, but a little more on the performance side. But having Amazon Athena for Apache Spark, and so that's an interesting.
So
this is melding there,
Yeah, so this is interesting because the Apache Spark for Redshift is about making it easier to access Redshift data from Apache Spark. So if you're running Spark on EMR or something like that, they now have stronger integration to be able to access Redshift data. The Athena Spark announcement is about running Spark on Athena. So today, if you are running Spark, you would spin up an EMR cluster with Spark and then fire up a Jupyter notebook. Or if you're using Glue, you'd create an interactive notebook on Glue, interactive job session, which basically fires up a Jupyter notebook. But behind the scenes, they're spinning up a Spark cluster for you to run on.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually through Athena. And what it does is it allows you to write PySpark code and run it in Athena. And what they're doing behind the scenes is they've basically developed a serverless Spark implementation. So when you put together something, you say, run this, it when you say run it, goes and fires up basically it's written on top of the same containerization mechanism that they use for Lambdas. Firecracker, I think is the name of it.
Mhm.
They're actually running Spark on that. And they have come up with a way to make it start in like 100 milliseconds.
So no cold start issues, and
Nope.
then you're still serverless, and it's basically, it seems like they're building the strategy around, hey, if you're building notebooks, we still want you to utilize Athena in a way, and build in these SQL queries into your notebooks. And when you're thinking about a data pipeline, let's keep you coming to Athena, where you
Right.
could have just worked in a totally separate environment.
Yeah. And if you think about the idea of a data analyst or data scientist who is familiar with Python and familiar with Spark and is dealing with a lot of data, the old way it'd be like I'd have to spin up this expensive cluster, then I'd have to start my notebook, and I'd be, doing all that. Today they can go, I want to go and try this other thing. So they just go into Athena, open up Athena notebook. There's all their code, make their changes, run it, runs super fast. The spin up, spin down time is almost non-existent now relative to the old way. So it makes it much more efficient to do from an exploratory standpoint.
Yep. And yeah, and that was always the thing of Athena too, is that you could get into a standpoint where if you have these known workloads, or you have something where you're not doing the ad hoc anymore, maybe it might not be performant, or it might not be economical to do. So it's kind of like two paradigms fighting at the same time, I guess.
Yeah.
The ease of the SQL versus the optimization of a Spark. So, and that might be developed in different places too. So that's kind of interesting.
So when I first was kind of looking into this, I made an assumption that they were running kind of a hot Spark cluster and managing it behind the scenes, and they were allocating you space on it to run your queries. And I was digging a little deeper, and I came across a podcast where they were talking to the people who created this. And they were saying that one of the big challenges that they had was data security. So I go and I pull this data off of S3 into memory on a Spark cluster for my query, right? And then, then I have to deal with cleanup and things like that. And if I'm running a number of queries, one right after the other, it's kind of hanging out there. And if it's a shared environment, what's the risk? Yep. So it turns out that they have gotten this to run so fast, or at least spin up, spin down so fast. Every time you run a query, it spins up a brand new container, loads your data, runs the query, and when it's done when it completes the query, it completely terminates and tears down that container.
So it doesn't even like try to leverage the hot zone, essentially.
No, it literally trashes it as soon as it's done, so there's no footprint left.
That's pretty incredible, and it reminds me of a previous show where we talked about all those updates of all those different services that could spin up and spin down so much quicker. It's cool seeing it kind of reflect through the product now.
Yeah, and so what they have done is they found I think they found a third-party tool that they've integrated and made this work. But basically what it allows you to do is take a running cluster or a running container and basically snapshot its runtime state and store that. So you basically are, rather than spinning up a brand new container and initializing, you're actually restoring a running container from a certain state. So that you create this container, it's all loaded up, has no data or anything. It's just ready for you to supply a query to it. And then they take and snapshot it. So every time you run, they basically reconstitute that snapshot, run your query, and then tear it back down again. That's how they get the speed, because they're not having to wait for, Spark to initialize and do all of this stuff. They've let it all happen and just basically grabbed a snapshot of that container in situ as it was.
Yep. And it's all the rest of it is already ready to go.
Yeah. And you know that they're going to be taking this, and once they prove it out, they're going to be, it's going to come over to Lambda. It's going to go to, serverless Kafka. It's going to, going to go over to other things like serverless Aurora. They're going to use the same concept to be able to say, there's cold, there's warm and hot, and we can actually store the hot and skip all the other stuff. So imagine Java running on Lambda and being able to go and say, oh, hey, now we've got a fully initialized but uninvoked Java thing. Let's snapshot it right there. And now every time you call this Lambda, if we have to do a cold start, we're going to grab that.
It's like you're getting into you're like a meta layer of distributed computing here. It's pretty incredible.
And like everything else that AWS does, this just creates another opportunity for people like you and I to focus on solving business problems, bringing new ideas to market and things like that, and not focus on, oh, how do I put a new jack on the end of this network cable that broke so that I can plug it back into my router.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's instantaneous, and you're not thinking about it, and it's obviously going to be optimized the best way that it can, because that saves AWS money too. So,
yep.
The more optimized they can make it, the better it is in general. So, yeah, I mean, these are we haven't even gotten to the crazy stuff yet. So this is exciting. So how about going back to AWS Glue too? They have AWS Glue data quality in preview.
Yeah.
And with the more data formats that Glue can utilize, which tells me that they're trying to keep bringing in other data sources. When I see like Delta Lake, I think of them taking back over, really.
Yeah, Delta Lake, Apache Hudi, Apache Iceberg. These are now native data formats that are supported by Glue. The data quality piece is interesting because now they're going to be pulling into Glue much more data quality analysis tooling, make it available. They have some of that available in Lake Formation and Data Brew. And again, I'm speculating here. I'm guessing that the data quality stuff that they're bringing into Glue comes, leans on some of the data profiling stuff that they've built into Data Brew and things like that. Plus the ML analysis that exists around, missing data, finding missing data, finding, repeats, finding stuff that statistically doesn't match, things like that, and being able to raise that up inside Glue so that as you're running your Glue jobs and doing various things, you can track and manage and do exception handling around poor quality data.
Yeah, and just it's a part of the process too, and you can have it visualized, and all the other visualization tools that Glue helps with visualizing the process. And I think that's that's going to be a heavily used tool in the future, and where it's kind of it's being done. It's just being done in different silos, sort of. So
and I think something interesting here, which traditional data quality tools, they'll do like data profiling. They'll tell you, hey, this table is 100, everything's this column is everything's unique, or this is the amount of stuff. And then some of them have been getting into some fuzzy logic ML type things for doing things like duplicate identification and stuff like that. One of the things they're doing with Glue data quality, forgive me here, is that they are also starting to provide recommendations for quality rules. So rather than you having to investigate and say, oh, okay, that looks to be a problem, I better write a rule around that, they will go and analyze your data and say, hey, you might want to add rules around this, this, and this.
Yep. And that is that's going to be a huge value add, on all levels, from the enterprise all the way to startups, obviously. But I think that if you can incorporate that with all the other advances that are coming around, like the Copilot stuff, like some of the things, some of the generative AI, essentially, and and have that be being improved with, human feedback loops. I mean, we're going to get a very crazy time here where we
Yes.
are like this hive mind of being able to provide good coding practices out to the masses. It's
Yeah,
going to be
the
crazy.
scary part is when rather than human feedback loops, we start getting AI feedback loops.
Yep.
Chat GPT talks to Chat GPT.
Yep. And or, Chat GPT that with this expertise talks to this one with this expertise, and then they combine, and that's really, I think that's where things are, we're seeing that happen on a human level too, right? We see different experts that are really good at this thing being able now to communicate with data with other people that might have called it like a different way or a different domain, or you
Yep.
just see it even in the evolution of data models. So um, I think that is we're, like I said before, we're at an exciting time to be alive right now. But yeah, I mean, granted, things are getting spooky, right? As Albert
Yep.
Einstein would say. So, um, I guess that kind of brings to the next point, and probably something that I need to do myself is the AWS clean room. So it's,
Yeah. You know what?
I
I
think
think
that all kind of comes in together, right? Is like,
yeah. So here I think I want to rearrange this. When we
yeah, yeah.
when we put the outline together, I had put that first. Let's talk about Amazon Data Zone first, just because I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah,
Clean Room will
absolutely.
build off that a little bit better. And so one of the gaps that has been around in the whole kind of data tooling with Amazon is around governance. And they've had some things, right? They came out with Glue Catalog, which allowed us to track metadata and track information about the tables. They came out with tools like data lake formation, which allowed us to provide a number of things, including better security on our data lakes and stuff like that, and govern access controls. So what Data Zone does is it brings another set of tooling in that I'm going to go back to your data product, statement earlier, John. It basically allows you internally to create data products that you can then disseminate and share internally in your organization and potentially across organizations that you have trust relationships with. So the way it kind of works is, on one side of the world, you've got your kind of data management team, if you will. You've got all your data. You got Redshift. You've got a data lake. You've got various things. You've got your Glue catalog, and you've got people who want to access that data and play with it, right? So they can go in and they can make a request, and you can actually create a package of data. And I don't know all the under the hoods, and for people who are interested, there is most likely a YouTube video from AWS reInvent where they did a deep dive on this that I haven't seen yet. So go check that out on their YouTube channel. But the packaging of this, they then make it available in a portal, and consumers, people in your finance department, people in marketing, a close trusted partner, can go into this portal and request access to it, and it then makes it available to them. So Data Zone has its own cataloging system. You can create projects within there that people can then collaborate around that data on. So you basically have this now ability to create, and again, this is in preview, to create data product representations
Mm-hmm.
for different audiences, right? And make those available, and then continue to manage them, right? So when the projects when you're adding people to work on this project, you just add them into that project in the portal, and now they have access to the same data sets. When the project's over, you can shut it down. If something happens, you can, the people on the data side can revoke stuff. So it gives a lot of kind of capability of exposing these data sets as product sets.
Yeah, and again, too, just having a consistency around how you're able to deploy data as a product or an insight
Yep.
or gathering of insights or a package of multiple files or anything. And that is that is something that will shift entire companies and the way they even make money, how they track budgets,
Yep.
how I'm just thinking the budget tracking and being able to utilize data products and really because data science teams, it's a very ambiguous life as a data
Yes.
scientist, right? And now you can get to the point where you're really being able to judge data scientists on their ability to create products that moves the bottom line. So
Right.
it's exciting and scary, I guess, for those
Oh, absolutely.
PhDs out there.
Yeah, and it impacts the entire organization. You mentioned data scientists, but it could be other people in the organization. It could be, gee, we've got a project
Yes.
to go determine can we improve the efficiency of our manufacturing operation, right?
Yep.
And we can then pull together a data set. And what's key here is we're not like creating a copy of the data and putting over there, and now we have to maintain another copy. What you're really doing is kind of saying, well, as part of this data set, they need access to this table in Redshift. They need access to this table in the data lake, and these different things. But what you're doing is composing, almost kind of like virtualizing
Yeah.
this stuff, and then presenting it as a single set of information for them to work with. So the self-service analytics buzzword has been around for a long time, and some people are way behind it. They're well behind it. Some people poo-poo it a little bit, but the reality is the self-service concept around the use of data is critical to scalability and organizations really being able to leverage that data for competitive differentiation.
Yep.
Because if the analysis work is only done by data scientists or only done by data engineers and things like that, you have a bottleneck. You can only
Yes.
do so much, right? But a good, solid marketing person who understands marketing data and understands all of that stuff can take marketing data and do campaign analysis. How effective are my campaigns and things like that, if they have the right data available to them. So this is another step in democratizing data, making it available in an easy to use format, minimizing the amount of maintenance that needs to happen, still maintaining compliance and access control, governance around it. So this is really cool.
Well, what it does in my mind, it makes the juice worth the squeeze. Where it's like before, you'd have to go to this team or that team, wait for that approval, wait for this,
Yep.
wait for that. So all of these just random ideas, that make companies really a differentiator that maybe just come out of the ether somewhere. You
Yep.
might have those ideas, and you just already know that it's not even possible. So don't even try.
Right.
And
Right.
now it makes all that, it makes the exploratory a lot, there's a lot less need for exploratory because you have the ability to just spin stuff up directly for the problems that you want to. So.
Right. Right. Well, and now you can also, you can put the exploration into the hands of more people.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Because they know what they're looking at. They know how to find it. And,
Exactly.
and also it's formulated in a way that they understand. I think that's a big thing too, is just the domain specificity that you can have. It's basically like you're solving the data mesh problem right there.
Right.
And
Right.
you can form fit it to your enterprise. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, this concept of a data zone project I find really interesting because I'm imagining, no idea if it's going to go there or not, I'm imagining new metrics starting to come out around this. So, for example,
Yeah.
today, if you have a data lake, even on AWS, and you grant that access to that data lake to a whole bunch of people, when data lakes first came out, there was really no way of determining who was contributing what cost to the data lake from a usage perspective, right?
Exactly.
Now you've got some things where you can at least create, like Athena work groups and apply quotas to them to minimize all that stuff, and you can try to, go through logs and CloudTrail and stuff like that to find out, all right, who's doing what, and try to parse that apart. I can imagine on the data zone projects, I can imagine cost analysis being tied directly to those.
Like I
So it's
said,
like,
I
oh,
think
this
that's probably
project
the
is
biggest
costing us
thing,
this,
right?
and this project is costing us this, and this project is, and we're getting no value out of this project.
It's like it's kind of it's a catch-22 on one side.
Yep.
Teams that are good, they're going to be able to show how good they are, and then the teams that are flying are, just, it's going to be interesting. And also, you got to think, if you're going to a team and it's not what you do, but you're having to spend all your time,
Yep.
making access for somebody else or doing this for somebody, that was an unseen thing before, and now
Yep.
everything, it's true attribution, and that's what I think is pretty powerful.
Absolutely. So now might be a good time to segue to clean rooms.
You're right. Yeah. So I mean, clean rooms. It's like, can you have a place where you're not worrying about, moving data or having the raw data, and that's something I was actually talking with a colleague today about. It was synthetic data,
Yep.
but also, just being able to do that without the raw data and being able to mess around. But I don't know enough about clean rooms. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more.
So just we'll keep clean rooms pretty high level because it's a really cool concept. It's a niche concept as well. It's needed, but not every organization will use it. So what clean rooms do is, for example, let's say you are a large healthcare provider organization, right? And I'm a company who's doing research and trying to develop a new mechanism around improving patient outcomes.
Yep.
Okay. I want access to your data. I want to collaborate with you. I want access to your data about your patients, right? And I want to provide you access to the results of what I'm doing so that you can tell me the value of that to you as a provider.
Yep.
So, are you going to take and regularly package up your data and ship it over to me?
Yeah. Not
Yeah.
juice, not worth the squeeze.
Yeah, it's like, well, if we have all of the agreements in place and everything is contractually very tight, and the lawyers have beaten their chests over and over again about this, yes, then I will. So what clean rooms allows you to do is create a clean room, a safe zone where you can share information between your organization and another organization while keeping tight control on your information and hiding the original raw data. So I can, so again, similar to the data zone where we're creating a data product, you're kind of creating a data product. You're setting constraints around usage, what they can get out of it, what they can do, how they can analyze it, what they can see. So it's a whole kind of, you go into this room and you then do your work and then you leave. So kind of think about like the super secret computer rooms that aren't connected to the internet. And if you want to do some work, you have to go into that room through security, and then you can go in there and you can work on the computer that's in there and do stuff. And then when you leave, they search you to make sure you don't have any data.
Yep.
So that's effectively what these clean rooms are doing, is they're providing that kind of isolated, secure environment around the data where we can get in there and collaborate together, but we can't take each other's data out, and we can control what each other can see of our data.
Yeah. Yep. And that's the thing too, is that you only want to go into that room to get that insight anyway. So just
Yep.
all I need is that one insight. I don't need everything else connected to it.
Right.
So that's
Right.
that.
So
I
you can see
mean,
why I say that's a little bit of it's a niche solution. Not every listener or viewer out there are going to be, oh yeah, we need clean rooms, but there are definitely quite a number of scenarios in finance, in healthcare, in government work, and
yep.
things like that, where this does become an important enabler as we lean more and more on processing and analyzing data to be able to drive how we do things.
Yeah, no, I what I think of is large companies that do a couple of different things, or like a pharma company that does research and clinical studies and patient
Yep.
care, and that's all connected with the same information that they need. So
Right.
just going through any research company that has to go from research to something where they're serving a customer, that's also another one.
Yep. Absolutely. So that's I think that's pretty much the list we've got for today.
Yeah, I think quite a list, a lot of paradigm shifters. I'm really excited to see as things start to come out of preview, how it's impacting customers on an enterprise level. I think there's a lot here.
It's a lot of this is in preview, but it's good for people to know what's coming down the line and directionally where things are going, so that as we are looking at the decisions we're making today, be able to set ourselves up to be adaptable, to take advantage of the things that are coming.
Yep, and you hit the nail
Doesn't
on
mean
the
we
head
wait
there.
for them, but we need to be adaptable.
Yeah, because really, you got to start looking at it. It's not just a technical thing here. These are paradigm shifters on a governance and a people level too, and that's why it's good to get ahead of this here, because it solves a lot of problems. But again, as you solve problems, you create them too when you need to transition. So
Yeah,
it's good to see it ahead of time.
Exactly. All right, to everybody out there listening or watching today, that's what we've got for you. Hope you liked it. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us there, and then or if you're listening on the podcast, feel free to share it with your friends and family and let them know about it. And join us next time for another set of interesting AWS related topics. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.